Well, good afternoon, everybody. This is Greg Smith. Welcome to our webinar today. It's a wonderful Wednesday afternoon. Today, we are going to learn about different ways to improve leadership development throughout your organization. Leadership development has been, I guess, my key topic for the past 40 years. I remember my first class, I was teaching a classroom of medics in the Army about, doing map and orienteering. And I learned that you just can't stick people in a classroom and PowerPoint them on how to do something along that line. And so for the past 40 years, I've been working with many hundreds of organizations developing training programs and leadership development programs. And I think we found a lot of good ideas and materials that will help you do the same with your organization or with your clients. So today, everybody is on mute. If you have any questions, feel free to type questions into the box, or if you can raise your hand, you can raise your hand as well. Hopefully we'll get to everybody as we go through today's program. Hopefully you can hear me and see me. And today we're fortunately to be joined with Todd Macy, who's the president of Vital Learning, who will be doing a good bit of this webinar today, and we certainly want to hear your questions on anything you might have on management, supervisory, or leadership development training. So anyway, welcome aboard. Also, I did upload the PDF version of these handouts. Hopefully you can see those on your little box there, and you can be able to download them. If you can't download them, then we'll try to get you a copy of them after the webinar. So let's go ahead and begin. So our key objectives today are to talk about the need for leadership development. I think there's a bigger need now for many different reasons than there have been in the past. And, I think what frustrated me the most when I was beginning my consulting practice is that the attitude of many employers is, well, we're just going to hire somebody who can do, who already have good leadership skills. Well, that's good, but if you can't find those people, it makes more sense to develop the people within your organization. And if you become a good employer who develops their managers, then that's going to help you with recruiting and retention as well. And I think the second point is, millennials in the changing workforce. Their generation versus maybe other generations are more passionate about learning and development and will stay with the company longer if the company provides career progression and training and development and good coaching. And then we're going to talk about, the different ways you can provide training through online courses, workshops, as well as classroom training or the more traditional training you may are comfortable with, but we know that one solution doesn't fit all needs. And then Todd's going to talk to you about the solutions Vital Learning brings to the boardroom. And then for those people who stay at the end of the webinar today, we're going to provide you a random draw, or we'll have a random drawing to provide someone, several $100s worth of training materials and books and possibly online courses that for that person who will be selected. So you have to stay to the end. And all right, so let's talk about, going back to, I think, some of the problems I discovered with the attitudes of a lot of employers years ago is they always say, well, how much is training really going to, cost this company? And I think the question is, well, how much is going to cost you if you don't train your managers and supervisors when it comes to lawsuits and turnover and conflict? So this survey was done many years ago by the National Center of Educational Quality of the Workforce, as a 10% increase in a workforce's education level leads to an 8.6% gain in total productivity. So training and development pays for itself, makes you a better company and gives you better managers and supervisors. So let's also look at some statistics affecting the workforce today. It says 86% of business leaders don't have an adequate leadership pipeline. A lot of my clients, 90% of their managers are retirement eligible, and they're having a hard time, filling the shoes of those people who are getting to retire, that are retiring. So training people is going to help with that succession planning. And then, like I said, 75% are struggling to recruit and attract top people they need. With employment levels down to 4% and less in many locations, we have to ensure that we have a great place to work to attract and retain those people. And then 17% feel like their company doesn't have any type of compelling brand or culture that's attracting the younger workforce as well. So let's talk a little bit about the millennials. First, let me block that out here, I like here to have opportunities for professional growth and promotion. As I said earlier in the objectives, that's a major concern for the younger workforce. Yes, everybody likes to have opportunities for professional growth and promotion, but I think this generation is a little bit different than certainly my generation, the baby boomer generation. And they require lots of coaching and have a voracious attitude of learning. And many of them aren't going to be happy just sitting in a traditional classroom being PowerPointed to death. That training and development has to be broken down into pieces and processes in order to really capitalize on the leadership training or the supervisory training that you're wanting to provide them. A recent study came out, I think just last year, is showing, again, emphasizing that point I just made, is 52% of the workforce are looking for opportunities for career progression, and 35%, hopefully you may not be able to read that very well, but on your handouts you should be able to see it, are wanting excellent training development programs. This is a worldwide survey called the PwC Millennials at Work Survey. So the key point comes down to this slide, and then I'm going to let Todd take over here. Once millennials stop growing, they start going. And if we're going to be competitive in the future, we have to attract and retain good people, and we have to provide them excellent training opportunities, or we're going to be at a disadvantage. So this is sort of like passing the baton. I'm going to see if I can do this and pass these slides over to Todd Macy, the president of Vital Learning, and he'll take it from here. So give me a second. I'll see if I can make Todd the presenter here.
All right. Well, as we're waiting for the controls to transfer over. Thanks, Greg, for that background. Greg's been a partner of Vital Learning for a number of years, and like you mentioned, he has a lot of experience in leadership development. So just a wealth of knowledge, and certainly we really enjoy being partnered with him. So Vital Learning is a little bit of background here. It's one of the solutions that Greg provides. So I'll go through a little bit of background on what we do, how we stand out, basically how we can address some of the challenges that Greg mentioned in the previous slides. So we'll start off here just by studying a little bit of context in terms of where we fit in the leadership development space. So this is one way that I like to conceptualize leadership development. If you look at, there's two continuums here. One is going from practical to high level theoretical or inspirational, and the other, the vertical axis, is going from management to leadership. So we look at leadership training generally and where Vital Learning fits. We're in the practical management skills component of leadership development. What that means is we help with management skills. So management being how do you execute kind of day to day versus leadership skills. You know, I define that as inspiration, motivation, strategy. So we hope with those management skills and give managers a set of processes and a framework that they can use to handle the specific situations that they're in a management role inevitably going to face. So those things involve communicating effectively, delegating to their team, providing feedback, resolving conflicts, things like that. So that's really where Vital Learning focuses. Just to give you a little bit of context in terms of where we fit in the leadership development space. And by the way, kind of looping back to something that Greg talked about, a lot of companies tend to focus on especially the upper right quadrant of this graph that we're looking at. So kind of that high level, inspirational leadership type and vision strategy type of training. What tends to be pretty light, and we've seen this, you know, time and time again throughout all sorts of different sizes of organizations and industries. They either don't have any training that covers this, or it's not very robust, is this bottom left corner, those practical management skills. And those are two, you know, you want to combine that with the more high level leadership type skills. So an ideal and real holistic leadership development solution contains elements from all of these four quadrants. So that's where Vital Learning can help an organization. It can help develop millennials, you know, who tend to be the age range who are in the new manager group. You know, kind of mid-20s to late 30s tends to be the age range that we see. So that's where our solution fits in. What we do, so this is in essence our recipe for developing an effective manager. We tend to start with communication and leadership skills, and that provides the foundation. So those are skills that an effective manager is going to need to use every day. And then we get into what we call the acceleration courses. So those are situation-specific skills that a manager is going to have. So that is, how do you resolve a conflict? How do you coach? How do you provide feedback? How do you manage a complaint? Things like that. Really what ties the curriculum together and what makes this unique, and I'll dive into this a little bit further, but it is our method of practice, practice, practice. How we get people exposed to handling these types of situations over and over in the right kinds of ways over time, that really ingrains those skills and then gets what you're ultimately wanting in leadership development, having people apply those skills back on the job and it becoming second nature. So that's ultimately where we want to get, and really is baked into everything that we do. So that's really our process in a nutshell. In essence, our recipe for developing an effective leader or manager. Some ways that we're effective. One is learning by doing. That's a key philosophy behind our approach. We really focus on the experiential type of going about leadership development. I'll talk a little bit more specifically on what that involves and can answer questions on that if you want to dive into that further. Heart of the course is really behavior modeling and skill practice. So getting people to role play out and practice with the specific situations that they're actually going to face. From the online course perspective, and I'll walk through a demo just to show you more tangibly what I'm talking about, but they're mobile optimized and bite-sized. In essence, they are designed for a leader and manager in a work environment today. So that loops back into what Greg talked about with the millennials. They have different expectations for how they want their training to be delivered. The death by PowerPoint format, the lecture-heavy format, or also the bullet point or video lecture format in the online environment really just isn't acceptable anymore. It's not effective in terms of getting people to ingrain the skills, and it's not engaging or interesting for the people going through the class. So they tend to check out, they don't see the value in it, they're bored, and they ultimately, we don't get behavior change or applying it back on the job. So that's why we design it in a way that's going to be engaging and give people that good practical experience with handling situations that they can see, okay, this is going to help me back on the job, and they're practicing things that they're actually dealing with.
Hey, Todd, I just want to break here in a minute. I think you said something pretty important that I wanted to emphasize is behavior change. Is there are a zillion leadership development courses out there, and I was one of those proud people who always wanted to develop my own leadership development materials over the years. But what I like about these courses versus a lot of the courses we've looked at or partnerships we've looked at with other companies, and why we like Vital Learning, is the way these online courses are designed is for behavior change. You can't just sit there and click a bunch of buttons and print out your course completion certificate at the end. You actually have to participate and read and answer the questions. So I just wanted to say that.
Okay, great, thanks. Yeah, that's a good comment, and I think from our perspective, if managers are not actually doing things different back on the job, if they're not following this process, that's a failure. So, in every way that we roll out and design these courses, it all links back to ultimately getting that behavior change. So yeah, thanks for emphasizing that, Greg. Last bit here, skill development over time. That's another really critical piece in developing managers today. And really is in line with best practices for how you get that behavior change and how you really ingrain that set of processes and skills within a leader, is skill development over time. So one training event, whether it's a classroom course, online course, whatever the format is, will typically not be enough to ultimately get to that behavior change. You need to practice those skills and apply them over time before they really ingrain. I mean, it's like a lot of other skills that you might think of: riding a bike, hitting a baseball. There's a ton of different examples. You need to get lots of practice over time. So that's something that in the solution we certainly have in mind. It have built in a variety of tools, a reinforcement app that's included, follow-up skill practice sessions, on-the-job worksheets that people can use. There's a new virtual simulation-based skill practice solution that we recently integrated. So a lot of different ways to give people that continued skill practice over time, so it's really ingraining. And that's something that's, if you look at rolling out a good solution today, what you should be looking for in any kind of training solution that you're trying to implement, is that people are getting that continual exposure. They can map it to what they're actually handling back on the job, and they have enough practice with it that they're comfortable with it, and they ultimately becomes second nature. So that's certainly something, as everybody's looking to implement their own training, that I would certainly recommend that you keep in mind, and make sure whatever solution you're using has that involved. Oh, all right. PowerPoint glitch there. A little bit of background on who we are. Vital Learning as an organization has been around for 29 years. Our curriculum was originally developed by McGraw-Hill in the early 80s, and the training division of McGraw-Hill spun off into Vital Learning in 89. And we've continually updated this core skill set, really our recipe, which is the Leadership Essentials series, for being an effective manager, and taking those same concepts and basic skills, which are really timeless, and updating them for today's audience. Most recently in 2016, completely overhauled our curriculum to best fit for today's managers. And there's a lot of research and kind of firsthand conversations that we had as part of that process. So really getting an understanding of what makes today's manager tick, both in the millennial generation and other generations as well. So if there's any questions that you have around that, between Greg and myself, I'm sure we can answer that for you. Greg, one of our partners, been a long-time partner of Vital Learning, a lot of leadership experience. So there's a lot of knowledge that he has in terms of how you can best implement this. And Greg will take a Vital Learning framework and roll it out specifically for your organization to make sure that it is the best fit solution specifically for your company and your managers. This last bit, how we can help. This is, it's just some additional ways. I won't go through all these in detail because I don't want to talk too much here, just on an overview level. But the short version is there's a lot of different ways that we can come in and help an organization. And Greg can really tailor this broad solution set that we have and meet the specific needs of the organization. So these are just some of the ways that we have listed, and a lot of this is just included within the solution. It's the framework and then can be made organization specific. So I figured I'd take you through just a quick walkthrough of what we were talking about, and this is an example of a best practice way to train leaders today, get them involved in their own personal development, have a culture where people are feeling that they are invested in, that they have the skills that they need to succeed in their career at their organization, as well as on a personal level. I think that's something that a lot of our best facilitators tend to emphasize as well. So I figured I'd just take you through that to show you a little bit more tangibly what these solutions look like. And then from there, if there's any questions or anything in particular that anyone wants to cover, either on these solutions, leadership training today generally, anything else, I'm happy to go through that. All right, so let's start off with a classroom version of one of our courses. So this is a learning management system that can be customized for each partner, and the organization can also get a custom version of this. I'm logged in as a participant, and they can access all of their available courses here. So I'm just going to go to one of these, Resolving Conflicts, and dial in on one of our courses specifically, and just give you a basic understanding for how it works, how it flows, and if there's any further depth that you want to go into, we can do that from there. So the online course, broken down into short modules by topic. The courses are fully responsive as well as in a micro-learning format. So that just helps to fit within someone's day better. The realities of today's workplace, it tends to be hard to find a full hour of time to take an online course. So this is with that reality, kind of mapping to that and how people want to learn today. So broken down into modules, I'll just launch one of these modules right here. This covers identifying conflict behaviors. So just to give you a general idea of the flow, a lot of the courses, there's a lot of video-based scenarios and application, and not a lot of lecture. This is a theme that is consistent throughout the online course and the classroom version of the course, as you'll see. So we see some short scenarios, and then are asked to identify what this scenario represents. So we see a short video. There's a little bit of review on conflict behaviors, which is something that we learned in the previous module, and then we identify which conflict behavior we're talking about. Going back, I'm going to go into another module real quick. This is an application module. So the last couple modules of the courses are really focused on going through a full a conversation that you've learned and going through all of the skill points, kind of applying it all at once. So, oops, I clicked on the wrong one. So we go in here. Gives us a little bit of background situation. and then asks us how would we go through, in essence, the steps of a resolving conflicts conversation. So that's something that we've learned in prior modules. These are the 5 steps of a resolving conflicts conversation, and now we're actually going through and applying it ourselves. Again, it fits with that philosophy of scenario practice and application, getting as much exposure and practice in the right kind of way as we possibly can. So I'm going to just pick one. All right, I happen to pick the best one. It shows where we answered along this continuum of most effective to least effective, reflecting that life is not one right answer and 2 or 3 or 5 wrong answers. Things tend to fall along a scale. So we reflect that here. The conversation continues. The team members in this case respond to what we said, and then we respond in turn, and we continue to go through this scenario. So that's in essence how our online courses flow, how they look. Just taking you through real quickly a classroom version. So participants can take an online version, they can take a classroom version and just do that, or you can do blended, which is a mix of the two. So here's a classroom participant workbook, also for the same course, Resolving Conflicts. The exercise that you're going over the same basic concepts and skills in classroom versus online, but the exercises are different, so that if you're doing the blended model where you're having someone take the online courses, they're not bored when they go into the classroom version and they're seeing the same stuff. So just kind of quickly going through this at a conceptual level, and just kind of walking through what a classroom course looks like. Our classroom courses start off with an introduction exercise. It's different for every course. So the idea is, instead of having someone stand up there and lecture, tell you about why resolving conflicts is important, you're having a experiential or discussion-based exercise where you see that for yourself. So in this case, with resolving conflicts, there's some questions and discussion around the worst conflict that participants have ever had. So there's a lot of different ways that the courses are kicked off. It's always sort of a different type of exercise. In this case, we're starting off with a discussion about conflicts that people have previously had. After that intro, it's kind of
Todd had a question come up online here. Is if you want to do the traditional classroom version, how long is normally the course? Because I know there's for the supervisory series, 12 different modules, 12 different facilitator guides. So
right.
How long can you make the course for?
So the classroom, if you're doing a classroom only version, those are about a half day. So it's about 4.5 hours. You can extend that if you want by doing additional skill practice exercises, or can pare that down. So it's kind of a general note. The curriculum is designed to be really flexible. So whatever the kind of timing needs are on your end, it can fit within that. So default is about a half day, but you can pare that down to about 2 hours if you want, and especially if you're doing the blended model, and the timing there tends to be people take the online course first and then go into abbreviated classroom session, which is about 2 hours instead of about 4.
Great, thanks.
Yep. All right. Yeah, and if anyone has questions as I'm going through this, feel free to just type them in, and we'll get to them along the way. All right, so after the introduction, we're in the Resolving Conflicts classroom course. And by the way, we're going through a participant workbook. So this is what a participant would get in the class. We then go into the key concepts of resolving conflicts. So first we have a little exercise about course goals. We learn about a couple of the key concepts within resolving conflicts, one being the cost of conflict. So there's some information discussion that you have there. More info about the 4 phases of conflict, and then you get into classifying conflict. So the idea here is that behind the conflicts, there are usually underlying issues that are involved, and there's different types of conflicts. There's different phases of the conflict, So the first step here is to figure out what type of conflict we're dealing with and what phase it's in, because that helps us figure out what the best course of action is. So we do some application with that. We're identifying conflicts in some short situations that are presented. We talk about our conflict style and how that affects the situation and the conflict style of the people that we're dealing with. So that's a little bit working in kind of a personality type profile piece into it. And then we do some scenarios where we're applying all this at once. This is kind of a common theme and flow within the courses, where we get a little background, get some initial application, and we go into short scenarios to apply it further. So there's video equivalents to all of this as well within the classroom. I should note that there's also a facilitator guide. So either as if you're a consultant, you can go through this guide and be able to teach it yourself, as well as organizations can take this guide, have an in-house facilitator look through it, prepare, and teach it in-house as well. So there's a lot of different delivery options that are available to whatever the organization is looking for. So just wanted to mention that as I go through it. So we're in this how would you handle it type of exercise. We see a situation, and then we're identifying some of the concepts that we've talked about. What are styles here? What's the underlying source of the conflict? That kind of thing. So some scenario application, and then we get into the skill point section. So we've learned some of these key concepts, and now we're going to go into how do we have an effective resolving conflicts conversation. And it starts with learning the 5 steps of that type of discussion. So we learn about those 5 steps, discuss that a little bit. These are available here. And then we go into application again. So, again, not a lot of lecture, a lot of experiential scenario-based learning. So we say, okay, how do we apply these 5 steps? We kind of break it down one by one to help people get comfortable with it. We give some scenarios. Again, there's a video equivalent to this as well that can be displayed. We're identifying some conflict handling strategies, identifying which skill point we think is relevant here, and then actually practicing saying that skill point. So we're starting to get folks comfortable with using the 5 steps of a resolving conflicts conversation. The next section of the course, we loop back to the 2 intro courses, if you could remember from the process, communication and leadership. So those tend to be the first 2 courses that people take and are constantly reinforced throughout the remaining courses. So we look at those 2 basic skills, communication and leadership, as a way to handle obstacles that are going to come up during your discussions. So we talk about some obstacles that could come up and how we can address those obstacles. Then getting into the positive model section of the course, we've learned the 5 steps. We started to apply them. Now we see an example video of a team leader effectively using those 5 steps in a conversation. So there's a video, some discussion around a video, and we start to fill out some of these worksheets in the context of this video, seeing how this leader is handling this conflict situation. So we're starting to, again, develop that comfort level with using these skills. After that, we get into really what is the heart of the course, which is the skill practice section. So there's a lot of worksheets I got to go through. Something to note, there's an office, manufacturing, and healthcare version of the course that people can use to make it more industry relevant, as well as there's a lot of ways, and Greg and I can talk about this further if anyone's interested, of really custom tailoring it for the organization so that it feels like something that's custom built, but you're using this existing framework, so it's a lot more cost effective.
Yeah,
so we go into.
Yeah. Just want to interject again. Sorry, Todd. That's the other thing I really like about this material is the classroom version. You get a thumb drive with the videos, and you can pick which version you want to use. The standard Office version, the the I guess, for lack of better words, the blue collar version or the healthcare version. We have one client of assisted living facility, and they've trained all their managers on all 12 modules using the healthcare version. So anyway, this it's quite a flexible solution. This the material that you're provided with, whether it's the classroom or the online version, is so flexible and adaptable that it can meet almost every need. I mean, if you're sitting in the doctor's office, you can get your smartphone and work on your online course while you're waiting to see the doctor. So anyway, that's there's so many benefits with this type of material that makes it really beneficial for people.
Certainly. All right, great. Okay, so kind of going back to the flow of the course, we've learned about the skill points. We've started to apply them individually. We've seen a positive model of someone going through the 5 steps of resolving conflicts effectively and talked about that. Now it goes into the heart of the course, which is the skill practice role play section. So, how this works is we break people up into groups. There's someone who is a team leader. For this course in particular, there's 2 people who are team members because they're in some kind of conflict. And then there's a 4th person who's an observer/coach. So people are broken up into groups, and they actually go through and practice having these conversations in their teams, and then getting feedback and switching roles. So we typically start off with a skill practice that's pretty similar to the video, just to make people more comfortable with it. They've already seen a good example of it, and they can better prepare for that discussion. And by the way, this is something that is very intentional. Skill practice can tend to be difficult. Some people are, not as comfortable with it as others, and so that's why we've done a lot of things. Hopefully you've kind of got the theme there of building up towards the skill practice to get people, more comfortable with actually having this kind of full conversation where they're saying something, their team members are responding in some kind of way, and then they're applying the skill points. So we do skill practice. The first skill practice, everybody gets a chance to be the team leader. And then there's typically a second skill practice that we make, very company or even on an individual level specific. So someone can practice a situation that they've actually faced themselves, conflict that they've faced in the organization. You can make a more general version. So you can say, here's a general scenario that this company tends to come up a lot. So you're practicing something that's relevant. And the key there is that, you want people to feel like what they're practicing is going to help them deal with actual situations that they're going to be facing. So it's really relevant, relatable to them. So that's skill practice number 2. Towards the end of the class, we talk about reinforcement. What are the next steps? Go over the reinforcement tools that we have, some follow-up exercises, the reinforcement app, and what you can do back on the job. There's a set of worksheets let me just scroll all the way to the back. They're contained within the workbook, and we have a digital version of these as well. As people prepare for a resolving conflicts conversation, as they have the actual discussion, and then as they look back on it and reflect, what can I do better? There's on-the-job tools that we provide to help people along with that. And by the way, they're using that in the skill practice. So they're getting that comfort level with using the worksheets. That's something that is a good takeaway that they can use back on the job at the moment of need when this comes up. Because obviously someone's not dealing with conflicts all the time, at least hopefully not. That'd be a bad environment where someone's dealing with conflict every day. But certainly they come up a good amount. And so we want to have people have the tools available when that need arises. So that's something that we talk about towards the end of the courses. Any Yeah, any questions there, Greg? Anything you think would be good for me to go over as well? Maybe something I missed.
Now, I think, just to emphasize that this can be administered, either online courses or classroom courses. Um, you know, Again, we talked about how long the courses are be. I know I've taught a lot of these courses myself over the years, and as Todd said, you can teach the course in 2 hours or 3 hours or 4 hours. You have enough material to do an all day long course if you really wanted to use all the materials that comes with the facilitator kit. Again, there's 3 versions. There's the office version, the manufacturing version, and the healthcare version, depending what type of industry you're in. Um, so, other than that, I don't think there are any other questions, so we can probably come toward the finishing this webinar up, unless you have something else you want to cover, Todd.
No, I think that really really covers it. I think if there's any other questions that you have for Greg and I can reach out, and we're happy to answer those, as well as anything relating to best practices for leadership development. This is something that both of us continue to kind of keep our finger on the pulse of best practices and best ways to roll out training, whether it's going the vital learning route or something else. That's something that we're always happy to talk about. So feel free to reach out if there's anything you think we might be able to help with.
Yeah, and I put up a slide here. Hopefully everybody can see it. These are some of the courses. I don't know how, Todd, I don't know, there's 20 or 30 varieties of online courses. I find lately the most popular course people are requesting is diversity awareness. I think just because the way the workforce and the work environment has been lately is, understanding how to manage different types of people. These are a list of the Vital Learning Leadership Essential series, and I know Todd was being very modest, but Vital Learning has won a ton of awards. In 2016, they got 3 or 4 awards for providing the best online training programs. So that's why we like to partner with Vital Learning. They provide quality content, and they're an easy group to work with, and we provide speedy services we can when people need to provide them training. So finally, I want to talk about, I have a box of materials I want to ship out to somebody. So all you need to do is send me an email and say random drawing, and I'll put you in the hat to be drawn as one of the winners today. So I don't see if there's any other questions. I just want to tell you I appreciate you spending time with us today. If you have any other questions on leadership development or the materials that we talked about today, feel free to contact me, and I will be able to answer your questions and hopefully come up with a satisfactory solution to your question. So anyway, I hope you have a great day. Todd, I appreciate it. Thanks for your time, and look forward to working with you again. So let me see a couple of questions here. For the blended courses, how long is the online portion before the classroom portion? And also, is it possible to blend the office and manufacturing versions? Can you answer either of those 2 questions, Todd?
Sure. So, the blended learning course, how it's typically done, and again, the materials are designed to be really flexible. So we've seen all sorts of different variations of this, but the most common way that it's rolled out in terms of blended learning and the time for that is you have people go through the online course first, and then they go in, which takes about an hour total. So let's say they go, Essential Skills of Communicating online course. And then they get some background on that, get some practice and start to get comfortable with it. And then they go into an abbreviated classroom session, and that tends to be about 2 hours if you're in the blended learning format. So it's about 3 hours total, an hour of online learning, and then 2 hours of classroom time because it's abbreviated, so it's down from the 4 hour version. In terms of the second question, in terms of mixing office and manufacturing, that's actually something that's done quite a bit. And it's usually in the context of a company who has a corporate headquarters, and then they might have either retail environments or manufacturing facilities, that kind of thing. And those two environments tend to be really different. The types of issues that come up, what managers are dealing with on a day-to-day basis, tend to be quite different. And so, what we can do and what Vital Learning solutions have been used in a variety of different instances to do is to have you're providing the same basic a framework for people, so they might be going through the same topics. One, you're using the office version, the other you're using the manufacturing version, and you might be practicing different situations in the course, with the understanding that the two environments have different situations that people are handling. So the short answer to the question is yes. That's certainly something that can be done, and is actually something that's done pretty frequently. So.
Yeah, I just want to add a little to that on blending the office and manufacturing versions. The videos you use are like I said, when I do classes, I can switch back and forth for either the office if I'm doing the office people, or if I'm doing the people in the warehouse by just clicking something different. The facilitator guide is tabbed, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. Where you have the office version and the professional, the warehouse version. There's really not a big difference. I think people are still talking the same way, but they may be wearing different clothes. So there's not a huge amount of difference between the different versions. And I had a question on pricing information. Again, what we sell the online courses for on our website is, and just do a comparison. Like if you sign up for a online leadership class online with a college or university, you're going to pay, $200, $300, $400. These online courses are only $49, which to me is a bargain. The facilitator guide is I think $300 and something. You can buy all 12 facilitator guides and get a discount price. And you also can become a partner with Vital Learning to, sell the material at I don't know what you call it, a distributor like me.
A distributor, yeah.
So you can talk to me about that if you're interested. And again, depending on the quantity of courses and that sort of thing, the prices could be a little bit different. All right. Well, thank you for staying to the end. Thank you for your questions. And again, thank you, Todd Macy. And I look forward to talking to all of you again down the road. Have a great day.
Sounds good. Thanks, Greg. Thanks, everybody.